welcome to another green marble crochet tutorial. For this tutorial, I'm going to be showing you how to make this very experimental autumn sweater. Yeah, that's what we're making. So yes, it's not my favorite thing I've ever made. I don't love it, but I don't hate it. So I just thought I'd post the tutorial anyway because somebody might like it. It's not horrible, I'll say that. So yeah, we're making this. So bear in mind for this particular tutorial, I will be giving you some formulas to work with because this is very much needs to be made to fit you. It'll be a very personal fit. So you'll be able to, hopefully I've explained it in a way that you'll definitely be able to modify it to fit you, you know. I like doing that. So that's what we're doing. So yeah. For this design, you should actually use a much lighter yarn because this one's very much worsted. And the hook that I've used is a 4mm, but you're supposed to use like a 5 or a 6 with this particular yarn. So when you do use a lighter yarn with a smaller hook, obviously, I feel like this sits a lot better. I will be posting pictures of the tester that I did on my Instagram so that everybody can have a look at that and see what the difference, see how it turns up differently. You know, so I'll be doing that. Let me know what you think. Yeah, I don't think that's it. Yeah, okay, so I will be showing you, I always show in the beginning of the tutorials the tiny details on the label of the yarn that we're using. So I will be doing that this time as well. But for this I used, including this that's left over, 6 skeins of this particular yarn to make this project. And that's what we've done. Yeah. Alright, so I don't think there's much else we need to say. Probably. If you haven't subscribed but you would like to subscribe to join me for some more tutorials, I would love to have you join me. A big thank you to my patrons. Thank you for your support. Thank you to my subscribers. Thank you for being here. Thank you for watching my videos. If you need to get in contact with me very quickly for anything, look for me on Instagram. I'm the_green_marble, and you'll be able to find me there very quickly. You know, I should be able to help you with anything you need help with. I think that's it. I think that's all we need to say. Probably just get straight into making this. Alright, so let's begin by having a quick look at the tiny details on the label of the yarn that we're using. So this is what we're working with. And if you need more time to look at anything, just pause the video. There we go. Some tiny relevant details. I don't know if you can see that. And here are the tiny relevant details. So very small. But if we get close enough, we can see it's saying that I should use a 6 or a 7mm hook. But I'm not going to. I'm going to use a 4 because I want my stitches to be quite tight. So that's what we're doing. And here is the yarn. So it's this lovely color changing, self-color change. I don't know, what do they call it? Self-changing? Self-color change? I don't know. Anyway, so what we're going to do, we're going to start by making the bikini cups. So to do that, we're going to find the end of our yarn. So finding the end of our yarn, we're going to take the end between the thumb and the index finger of the right hand. Then with the index finger and the middle finger of the left hand, you're going to wind the yarn around like this. And then you're going to grab hold of that working bit and pull through the loop. Just like that. Sorry, my camera doesn't really like focusing at the moment. I'm not sure why. Okay, so something else. I don't want to make the tail end very long because I'm going to crochet that in as I go along. So try and make that end as small as you possibly can. That way you can crochet it in as you go along and you don't have to weave it through later on. So now you've got your knot and you're going to get your hook. You're going to slip the hook through like this and pull tight. Grabbing the working end, pull tight. So that's our slip knot. So what you want to do to begin your bikini cup, number 1, is you want to chain a length that runs from the midsection of the breast to sitting just beneath. So for me, that's about 13 chains, plus I'm going to chain an extra 1 for the turning chain. So we're going to do 14 chains. Well, I'm going to do 14 chains. So to do a chain stitch, it is yarn over, pull through the loop, so that's one chain. Then you've got another yarn over, pull through the loop, that's 2 chains. Yarn over, pull through the loop, that's 3 chains. So I'm going to go away, chain 14, and we'll meet back up. Okay, now here I am with my 14 chains. So what we're going to do now is we're going to put 13 half double crochets into every chain all the way back to the beginning. So for a half double crochet, what we're going to do is we're going to yarn over like this, then skipping that first chain just there from the hook, we're going to move to the second one along, so that one just there. We're going to insert our hook into the top part of the chain, then you yarn over, pull through a loop like this. So now you've got 3 loops on your hook, and now you're going to yarn over, pull through all 3 of those loops, just like that. And that's a half double crochet. So making sure to skip that first chain, that's into the second chain along. So now you're going to put in your remaining half double crochets into each of the remaining chains till you get to the beginning. So that's 13 half double crochets for me. I'll meet back up with you at the beginning and we'll go from there. Alright, so here I am and I'm about to put in my 13th half double crochet. But what we're going to do into this last chain just here is we're going to put 1 half double crochet. So there's 1. Then into that same chain, so into the same chain we're going to put another half double crochet. So going in, putting another half double crochet. So now we've got 2 half double crochets into that end chain. And now what you're going to do is you're going to chain 1 and put another 2 half double crochets into that end chain. So, well, actually it's the beginning chain. So into that beginning chain right there, yeah. Into that beginning chain right there. So you've got 2 half double crochets, a chain 1 and 2 half double crochets. So now you've turned to the other side of the chain. And what you're going to do is put in half double crochets all the way back to the end. So minusing that 13th one that you've got all those half double crochets in, well, I've got 12. So I'm going to do 12 back down to this end. So you'll be able to see fairly easily where you need to put your stitch because it's just going to be right above the corresponding one on the other side. So there's that first one just there for me. So we're going to the top of that, the other side of that chain, pull up a loop, half double crochet. So that's my first half double crochet. Okay, and then moving on to the next one. So you'll be able to see again where you should put that, just above the next one, just there. I have faith in you. I know you'll work it out. So yeah, for me it's going to be 12. I'll meet back with you at this point and we'll go from there. Alright, now here I am with those half double crochets back down the other side. So just, you know, for the sake of, I don't know what, but for the sake of that, I'm going to be calling these half rounds because, you know, we're not joining it, but it's still sort of half a round. You'll see what I mean. So what we're going to do now is we're going to chain up 1. So there's 1. Then we're going to turn the work like this. And our first half double crochet is going to be that stitch right there beneath the chain of 1. So you're going to yarn over, go into that, focus the camera, chain 1, you're going to go into the hole of that stitch. And what I mean by the hole of the stitch is you see on the top just there's a V, and you're going to go in beneath both parts of that V. You're going to yarn over, pull up a loop, yarn over, pull through 2. So we're going to be putting half double crochets all the way till we get up to the top where that chain of 1 was, just at the top there. So for me that's going to be 14 stitches because remember we added the 4 half double crochets into that 13th stitch at the top just there. So on either side of this half round there's going to be 14 stitches with that chain of 1 right in the middle there. So I'm going to do 14. It's going to be whatever the initial stitch count was for you plus 2. I guess yeah, you know what I mean. So for me 12 plus 2, which is 14. Yeah, I know. I mean, obviously the initial stitch count was 13 chains, but that 13th one is where we've done the increase section. So that's how this begins. I couldn't think of a different way to explain that. I hope that's okay. I don't know. All right, so I'm nearly at the top anyway because, you know, I was rambling. So we're going to get there together. We're going to make it. Obviously, pause the video if I've gone too fast, or wait for me if you got there already. Okay, so here we are. We're at the top. So here we are at that chain of one space. So if you pull that apart just there, you can see there's that little gap. And what we're going to be doing right here is we're going to be yarning over. We're going to go into that gap where that chain of one space is. So going into that gap, you're going to yarn over, pull up a loop, 1 half double crochet, then into the same space, so into the chain of one space, you're going to do another half double crochet, so that's 2. Then you're going to chain 1, and you're going to put another 2 half double crochets into that chain space of 1. There we go. So that's another increase. So just like that. And that's what that's going to look like. So now you're going to have your 14 half double crochets back down the other side. So I also just want to mention quickly that, you know, a good way, because at the top just here, I'm going to take out those 2 I've just done. And just so that you don't get confused about which stitch you need to be going into, because you might accidentally go into that chain of 1 just there. So the stitch that you'll be working into is the falls to the top left hand side of the corresponding stitch. So there's the stitch that you're working with just there, and there it is at the top left hand side. I hope that makes sense. I just find that's the easiest way for me. If I feel like I'm lost or anything, I look at the stitch that I'm working with. Especially if you're chaining up 1 and you're turning, you're not working into the braided side, because if you're working into the braided side, the stitch that you're working into falls to the top right hand side of the corresponding stitch. So that's just, yeah, good thing to remember. I find that's a good thing to remember. All right, so I'm going to meet you down this end and we'll go from there. All right, so here I am down the end. So now once again, we're going to chain up 1 and turn. And now you're going to be putting half double crochets up to that chain space of 1 that you did at the top just there. So because you've increased by 2 on each side again, so now you've got 16, or now I've got 16 half double crochets up to the chain space of 1. Once you get to the chain space of 1, you're going to do your 2 half double crochets, chain 1, and another 2 half double crochets into that chain space. Then you'll be working your stitches back down the other side, which is going to be the same count as on this side. And that's how you're increasing. You're going to chain up 1, you're going to turn, and then the round after that will be, for me, 18 till I get to the chain space of 1 at the top, increase, back down the other side. So what we're doing here is we're increasing the area till it's an appropriate size, you know, it gives you good coverage. Okay, yes. What you're going to do is you're going to increase till you've got to estimate. So you're going to leave 1 row out of the first cup. So this, for me, usually, but I mean, this yarn's a bit thicker than what I'd usually be using for a bikini cup. So there might be less. Just try it on as you go. But you're going to leave 1 half round unfinished on the first cup. So once you've done that, for instance, for me, it's normally about 11 half rounds that gives me good coverage. So for the first cup that I do, I will only do 10. Then I will cut the yarn, tie off, get working on the second cup. Because once you finish the second cup, or once you get to the 10th half round of the second cup, you'll be joining the cups together using a half round of 11. So you'll see what I mean by that. So that's what you're going to be doing. Complete the half rounds till you need 1 more on the first cup, tie off, cut yarn, tie off. Do the second cup to the same amount. We're going to meet back up at that stage and I'll show you what I mean. I'll show you what I mean then. So obviously stick around if I haven't been very clear, and you'll see at that stage what I'm talking about. All right, so I'll see you soon. So like I said, just increasing like that till it's a good size. And yeah, we'll go from there. All right, I'll see you soon. All right, now then, I have done 2 bikini cups. And I cut the yarn and I tied off on the first one, but I've still got the yarn going on the second one. And I've got one more half round to complete on each before they give me what I consider to be appropriate coverage. So this is a lot thicker than the yarn, like I said, that I'd normally use to make a bikini cup. And it's in fact thicker than the yarn that I used to do the tester for this particular design. So the stitch count is going to be completely different. But that's okay, because what I figure is that with this particular design anyway, once you have the basic formula, it's just a matter of playing around with stitch counts until you get it just right for you. And it's not going to be hard at all. So yeah, I'm kind of looking forward to it. This is a bit of a trial in itself. But anyway, let's get to it. So what we're going to do now is, like I said, we're still going on this second cup. So for me, yes, that was the other point I was going to make. So normally it's about 11 half rounds for me for good coverage, and I'd leave it at 10 on this one, and we'd do the 11th on this one and then join, and that's how we're doing it. But for this, it's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. So there's only 8 half rounds, and now we're going to join on the 9th. So yeah, just keep that in mind, whatever yours is. So anyway, what we're going to do now is we're going to, camera back up, and we're going to chain up 1 and turn. We're going to do another half round. So we're doing our 9th half round on this second cup just here. And when you get to the end on this side, so once you get down to the final stitch, we're going to meet back up at that point. And you are still doing the increase at the top just here. So make sure you do your 2 double crochets, chain 1, 2 double crochets into that chain space of 1 at the top. This yarn is so beautiful. I love those colors. Anyway, so yes, I'll meet you at this final stitch and we'll join it to the first cup. All right, see you at that point. Alright, now that I've completed my 9th half round on this cup and I've done the last stitch, what we're going to do now is, I'm going to tilt the camera down for this moment, for this bit. So what we're going to do is yarn over and sort of push your yarn to the side just here. Then you're going to pick up the first cup, and where you've cut the yarn and tied off, you're going to look for the first stitch along just there. So that one just there, which would normally be beneath that chain of 1 when you chain up 1 and turn. You're going to stick your hook through there. You're going to grab your yarn, bring it around. And I'm crocheting this little bit in as I go along. So you're bringing that bit of yarn around, you're going to yarn over. You're going to pull a loop through that stitch on that first cup. Make sure you pull it tight though. You want to make sure the stitch is fairly tight so it draws the cups together. Then you're going to yarn over and you're going to pull through all 3 of those loops. So you're really just half double crocheting those cups together. Try not to get those twisted. So anyway, we'll just, come back up here now. And now what we're going to do is we're going to put in half double crochets till we get up to the increase section. So I'm going to meet you at the increase section because we're going to be doing something a little bit different to what I normally do. Well, actually, no. I mean, I did this in the last tutorial. So we're going to be doing that again. But, like I said, because the yarn is completely different, the stitch count is going to be different. So we're going to meet at that point. And also because if you didn't watch the last tutorial, you're going to want to see it now. Alright, yeah, so that. I'll meet you at the top when we get to the increase section, and we'll go from there. Okay, see you soon. Alright, now here I am at that chain of 1 space at the top. So what I'm going to do is, into this chain space of 1, I'm going to put 1 half double crochet. So just the 1. Now, what we want to do at this point is, I'm going to tilt the camera down. What we want to do at this point is we want to chain a length that when you lay the cups down flat like this side by side, runs between here, sort of, and just lies flat between these 2 sections at the top. So we'll be joining the chain from this stitch, this first half double crochet into the chain space of 1, to the stitch that corresponds with the, well, on this side, the first chain space into that, first half double crochet into that chain space of 1. So that's going to be that one just there. We'll get to that though. So for me, oddly, the chain, despite the fact that the yarn is thicker, is still 30, which is the same as what I did for the tester with the finer yarn. So I'm going to be chaining 30, and once we've chained 30, we're going to meet back up. So alright, straight from that half double crochet that you put in, you're just going to chain your length. So like I said, running from the peak of this cup to the peak of this cup. So 1, 2, 3. Alright, here I am with my chain of 30. So like I said, what we're going to be doing is we're going to push the yarn to the back just there. We're going to pick up the other side, the other cup, and you're going to be working into the stitch that corresponds with that first, the body of that first stitch just there, so that stitch. Okay, so remember when I said that when you're working into the other side of the stitch, the side that's not braided, you're working into the part of the stitch that falls to the top right hand side. But when it's the braided side, it falls to the top, no wait, sorry, the top left hand side. When it's the other side that's not braided, the stitch falls to the top left hand side. But when it's the braided side, it falls to the top right hand side. So here we are, we're working with this stitch just here. Hope you can see what I mean. So you're going into this one at the top right hand of that. Let me know if that doesn't make sense. I will endeavor to, try and explain that better. I don't know, I feel like I'm not explaining it well, but it's probably fine. You know what I mean? Anyway, so now that we've done that, we've slip stitched to that stitch. So I don't know whether you saw that. We'll do it again. Hang on a second. Alright, so instead of going on and on, now I'm going to show you that into that stitch, you're going to insert your hook. So you're going to go through beneath both parts of that V, yarn over, pull through a loop, and then pull it through that last loop on your hook. So you're slip stitching to that chain of 30. So now what you're going to do is, moving to that chain, you're going to skip the first chain from the hook. Focus, come on, focus, focus. Skipping the first chain from the hook, so that one just there, you're going to slip stitch into the second one, so that one just there. And basically what you're doing is you're just slip stitching all the way back down that chain. So for me, there's going to be 30 slip stitches till I get to the other side, at which point we're going to meet back up. So let's just move on. I don't know whether you saw that. So just moving into the next chain along, slip stitch, and then moving into the next. So that's 1, 2, and this one's going to be 3. So just do that. We'll meet back at this point and we'll go from there. Okay, see you soon. Alright, now here I am. I'm back at the end of that chain. So I slip stitched into all 30, can't talk properly, into all 30 of those chains. So now all we're going to do, straight from that last slip stitch, we're going to put another half double crochet into that chain space of 1 at the top. So there's another half double crochet. Then we're going to chain 1 and put in another 2 half double crochets into that chain space, just to complete that increased section at the top, and just like that. There we go. So that's that. Now what we're going to do is we're just going to complete our half double crochets all the way down the side of this cup till we get to this end. And at this point we're going to turn to the underside of the cups and we're going to put our half double crochets in to finish up the front section at the top just here. And that's what we're doing. So I'll meet you down the end. We'll do it together. Meet you at this point. Okay, see you soon. Alright, now here I am down the other side of that cup. So what we're going to do now is, actually should be using this hook. Alright, so what we're going to do now is we're going to turn to this side, and to do that we're going to put 2 more half double crochets into this last stitch that we've done. So there's going to be 3 half double crochets in that same stitch. And this is just to turn to the underside of the cup, just like so, like that. So that final stitch just there into that last stitch, that is going to represent the stitch that goes into this row end that we've done just here. So this row that we've done, the 9th half round, that's that stitch for that. Then moving on to the next row end, which is this one. So basically we're working half double crochets into all the row ends. So there's going to be 18 row ends on each cup, but we're going to meet in the middle just here, and we're going to put a half double crochet in around those cups, around that join just there between the cups. We'll do it together, but let's move on to the next half round row end together. So we've put our stitch into that row end just there. So moving on, you've got this one just here, so you're going to put a half double crochet just around the post of the row end just there like that. Let's get closer. So where's the next one? The next one along, which is just there, that row end, you're going to put a half double crochet into the end, just around the end, just there like that. So that's 3. And then we're going to go, and there's that next row end just there. You're going to go into there, put it on, that's 4. So just like that till you, and obviously because there's 9 half rounds, you've got 18. So I'll meet you in the middle just there, and we'll do it together. Okay, see you soon. Alright, so here I am putting on my 18th half double crochet into this last row end. So just going in there, just like that, half double crochet. So now what we're going to do is just around this joining stitch, we're going to put a half double crochet, and just like this. And then moving on to the first row end along just here, you're going to put your first half double crochet around the post of that row end, or the end post. Then moving on to the next one along till you've done 18, well, however many row ends you've got, you know, however many half rounds that you had to increase, you double that, and that's how many stitches are going to be along each cup. So I'll meet you at this end, and we'll talk about how we're going to close up, and then we'll talk about how we're going to move on to the back. Alright, see you soon. Alright, here I am at the end. So we've got, what have we got? We've got 36, 37 half double crochets all the way along the bottom just here. So what we're going to do now is we're going to put in another half double crochet into the final row end just here. So you'll see that you're going around that initial chain of 1 from the beginning of the 9th half round on the second cup just here. So you're going in around this with that turning stitch. So because we've gone around that chain of 1, what we're going to do is moving on to the next stitch along, we're going to slip stitch into that stitch there. Because you see we went around, there's that chain of 1 from the beginning, and we've gone around that with 2 stitches. It's going to be too hard to slip stitch into that, so we're just going to move to the next one along and slip stitch. Just like that. Nice and neatly slip stitched. So now what we're going to do is we're going to chain 1, then we're going to find our scissors. I'm going to angle the camera down. We're going to find our scissors, cut the yarn. I'm not going to cut too much because I will try and weave it in, crochet it in as I go along. I like to try and do that just because, you know, I don't know. There's no particular reason. Anyway, so now all you're going to do with that chain of 1 that you've done, you're just going to pull that through. Pull tight. So there you've tied off. And that's what we've done. So there is the front, the beginning of the front. Like I said, I love these colours. They're so gorgeous. And I can't wait to see how this is going to turn out. It's obviously going to be a lot more chunky than the original tester that I've done. But, you know, that in itself is very interesting. And these colours are just so autumny and pumpkin-y, and I love them. Alright, we're going to begin work on the back. Alright, now then, to get working on the back, what we need to do is we need to look at the chain that we did across here. And that is the starting chain for the back that we're going to be working with. So for me, it's going to be 30 for the back just here. However, we're also going to be putting in shoulder sections. And it's sort of going to be slightly off the shoulder, so it's not going to be a normal sort of a shoulder sections, back sections kind of a thing. It's kind of going to slightly sit off the shoulders. So for me, what I've done is we've got 30, and I need to increase the back to a width that when I join to here and to here, it's going to sit comfortably around my torso. You know, it's not going to be too tight. So here's what I've done. Here's what I've done. So sticking your hook through this chain just here on this side of the bottom of the cups, we're going to make a fresh slip knot. So just like this, making a fresh slip knot, adjusting the slip knot to our hook. You're going to pull that through that stitch. Then you're going to make a chain. So the chain that you make, so 1, 2, 3, is going to wrap around your back until it meets up on the other side just here. And you want it to sit comfortably, sort of snug but comfortable, because when you put in the double crochet, it sort of expands the width of the chain anyway. So that's what you're doing. And it won't be a chain at that stage. It'll just be a bunch of double crochets, which is going to be a little more sort of stretchy and expansive in that respect. So that's fine. So what I'm doing here is I am making that chain, and it's going to wrap around to this side. And for me, that is 66 chains. So what I've done is I've calculated how many rows it's going to take for me to increase to 66 from 30. So that's going to be 18 rows of increase, because you're increasing at each side of the stitch count of 30, plus we're factoring in shoulders. So bearing in mind that stitch count of 66 that I've done, you're just going to put that aside. What you're also going to do is you're also going to make a chain. So taking this away, make a fresh slip knot. You're going to make a chain that measures around the widest part of your bicep. So your upper arm, you want to make sure you know what that stitch count is. And for me, that's 50. So factoring into that 18 rows, I'm minusing however many is. So 18 plus 18, was that 36? Yeah, that'll be 36, obviously. So 50 minus 36, which I think is 14. Yeah, it's 14. So I will be starting with a stitch count of 14 for each shoulder. So that's 14 chains for each shoulder. So it's going to be a chain of 30 plus 14 plus 14. So I'll be starting with a chain of 58. And then when I increase those 15 rows, I'll be increasing both the back and the shoulder sections. You'll see when we get to it. And once we have reached that row count of 18, that's when we'll be joining the increased sections to form the sleeves. I just want to interject quickly because I have here what you might call a snag. It's not really a snag, but you may come across this problem while you're increasing. And that is that you might find, as I found, that the circumference of the sleeve will be too wide if you continue to increase to the stitch count that you estimated with the chain. So for me, I haven't needed to increase by 18 rounds. I think I only needed to, is it 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13. Yes. So I only needed to increase by 13 rows till the back was wide enough and the sleeves, when joined around the bicep, fit. So that's what you may find. However, it is useful to do the chain for both the torso, so around the back, and the sleeves, because that way you'll know what stitches you need, or what chain you need to start with. Because if you just randomly add, whatever chains you think you'll need for the shoulders, you're going to find that it won't increase to the same rate, to the ratio that it needs to be with. So for instance, the back could be too wide, or too not wide enough, and the sleeves will be at the right width. So that's why you did the chain for both, so that you could estimate roughly, so anyway, I just wanted to mention that because obviously I didn't need 18 rows to get to where I needed to be. So just try it on as you go, everything is always that I do is try on as you go usually. So just do that. So I just wanted to interject. If you've got any questions, please ask me. But yes, I did find that I didn't need to to get to those 18 rows, only 13. So, all right, now we'll just get straight back to what we were doing. I really hope that makes sense. I've been struggling with how to explain this, but so far this seems to have worked. This seems to have worked out. Anyway, so like I said, I'm starting with a chain of 58. So we're just going to get started with that. We're just going to put this aside for now, not worry about it, because as I said, I've explained the measurements. So whatever your starting chain is for the back, and then whatever your bicep chain is, you know what I mean? And then you're minusing the rows that you minused from the back, from the chain that you wrapped around your upper part of your torso. I'm just going to confuse you if I keep going with that. So if you need more clarification, just let me know and I'll try and put it into like a message for you. I'll try and write it down. All right, so starting with a slip knot, and I'm making that tail end not too long again, like long enough but not too long, because I'll try and crochet that in at some point. So starting with a chain of, for me, 58. So 1, 2, 3. All right, now here is my chain of 58. So what I'm going to do now is I'm going to chain an extra one for the turning, and I am going to be doing double crochets, but I'm always going to be chaining up one at the beginning of or at the end of each row, just because for me I think it makes it look neater on the sides, and also when it comes time for me to put in the edging, I just find it works better. All right, so we're skipping that first chain from the hook. Now what we're going to be doing is we're increasing straight away on this first chain. So we're going to yarn over, we're going to go into the next chain along, so that second chain just there, you're going to go into the top of that chain, yarn over, pull up a loop, yarn over, pull through 2 loops, where are we, 2 loops, and then yarn over, pull through 2 loops, so that's a double crochet. And what we're going to be doing is we're increasing for the shoulders, just for this particular row. For the next rows, for the rows after this, the next increase rows, it's going to be completely different. So we'll just work on this first one together. Then I can show you the next one and you can just go from there till you've increased to, you know, your desired stitch count. All right, so into every second, or into the second stitch just here, the second chain, you're going to be putting 2 double crochets into the same chain. So that next one along, 2 double crochets into the same chain. So that's your second of the starting chains for your shoulder. Now what you're going to do is when you get to the second last chain of this particular shoulder count, so for me it's 14 along here, when I get to the 13th, so I've already done 2 and there were 2 into that second one, when I get to the 13th, I'm going to put 2 into the 13th chain, then 1 into the 14th. So that's going to be our first increase for the shoulder section. So I'll meet you at the 13th and we'll do it together. All right, so here I am at that 13th chain, so I'm going to put 2 double crochets into that same chain, just like this, and then I'm going to put 1 double crochet into the 14th. So that's our first increase for our first shoulder, and now we've got a stitch count of 16 for the shoulder just here. So what we're going to do straight from this last stitch of the 14th chain, we're going to chain 2, and this is going to create our increased sections when we come to put in the next row. And into the next stitch, which is going to be the first of your 30 for the back section, you're just going to put 1 double crochet into the next chain, just there. So just 1 double crochet. However, we are increasing the back as well straight away. So we're going to put 2 double crochets into the next chain. So the second of those 30 on the back. 1 and 2. And now you're going to put in just 1 double crochet into every chain all the way till you get to the 29th of this 30 for the back. So you're counting from that chain of 2 that you've done. So you've got 1, then you've got 2 into the second stitch, then 1 into the third stitch. So you count along and then you've got 4, 5. I'll meet you at the 29th and we'll do it together. Alright, so here I am at the 29th chain of the back section. So we're going to put 2 chains into that, 2 double crochets, sorry, into that 29th chain to do the final, well, to do the second part of the increase for this back section. Now we're going to put just 1 double crochet into that 30th chain for the back. 1 double crochet. So now what we're going to do straight from that stitch is chain 2 to make our next increase section for the next row. You're going to put 1 stitch into the next chain, which is that first chain for the next 14 chains that you've got, and then into the second chain along from that, the next one, you're going to put your 2 double crochets for the next increase, or the first increase of this shoulder. And now you're just going to complete the stitches, and when you get to the second last stitch, you're going to put in your 2 double crochets into that same stitch. So I'll meet you at that point. So here we are at that second last stitch, so we're going to be putting our 2 double crochets into that stitch, and then hopefully without bumping the camera, we're going to put another double, well, our last double crochet into that final chain just there. There we go, and we've completed our first increases. So we now have a stitch count of 16 for each shoulder and 32 for the back, and you're going to be increasing by 2 stitches for each section as you go along the rows. So like I said, I'm only chaining up 1 for the beginning of each row. So what we do is we chain up 1 and we turn the work, and our first double crochet is going to be into that stitch right there beneath that chain of 1. So you're going into that stitch just there. And remember, you're going beneath both parts of that V on top of the stitch, the braided part. So that's 1 double crochet. Now, because this is the shoulder section, every second stitch at the beginning of each row is going to have 2 stitches. So the next one, next stitch along, second stitch, you're putting 2 double crochets into that stitch. And that's to keep the increase of 2 stitches for each shoulder consistent the whole way. That was messy. I didn't like it. I'm going to do another one. There we go. All right, and then when you get to the end, I'm going to meet you at this increase section. We'll talk about how we're doing that together. So yes, now you're going to complete every stitch until you get to that increase section. But I just want to mention that, oh no, hang on, I'll meet you at the increase section. Alright, so I'm on my final stitch just here, and obviously there would have been 16 stitches that I'm working into considering the increase from that first row. But just if you're ever unsure of which stitch you're going to be putting your stitch into, like I said at the beginning, it's going to fall to the top left hand side because you're chaining up and working into the non-braided side of the stitch. So it's going to fall to the top left hand side of the body of the stitch that you're working with. So we're just putting our 16th into that. Now what we've got here is obviously a stitch count of, it's going to be 17 because you've put that extra one in at the beginning, or the second stitch just there. So to make 18, what you're going to do is you're going to see into that chain space of 2 just there that you made, you're going to put a double crochet into that chain space, and that's your 18th stitch of that increase. Now what you're going to do is chain 2, so 1 and 2, and you're going to put another double crochet into that increase section. And this double crochet is going to be the first of the next increases you're doing along here. So along here, you're not putting any 2 stitches into a stitch. This is where you're increasing at these increase sections now. So obviously you're working into the stitch that falls to the left of the body of that stitch. So that's your first of the next stitches along the back here. And once you get to the end, you're going to do the same thing into the next increase section. You're going to put a double crochet, chain 2, double crochet into that increase section. And that's going to bring your back stitch count to 34. So that's how that works. Then when you get to the end of the row, I'll meet back up with you and we'll do it together. But you're putting 2 stitches into every second last stitch. So that's what you're doing. That's what we're doing. I'll meet you at that point and we'll do it together. Alright, now I'm on my second last stitch. So I'm gonna put 2 double crochets into that for the final increase of this shoulder section. So it's gonna add another stitch. I move my hands further away from this camera so I stop bumping it. Then you've got your final stitch there. So just always be careful, make sure you're getting into the last stitch just there. It's going to kind of fall off to the side, but that's the stitch that you're working with just there. So you're going to go into that beneath both parts of the V of that stitch, and you're going to do a double crochet. Just like that. And there we go. So that's how we're going. And that's how you're going to be doing it till you've increased to the stitch count that you want. So for me, obviously, that's a stitch count of 50 for the shoulder sections and a stitch count of 66 for the back. And that's what I'm going to join those sections, and we're going to talk about what we're doing from there. Obviously, your stitch count will be different. So see, I've just chained up 1 and I've turned, and now I'm putting my first double crochet in, 2 double crochets into the next stitch, and then just working with your increased sections till you get to the end where there'll be 2 double crochets into the second last stitch, 1 double crochet into the last stitch, chain up 1. So that's what we're doing. I will meet you when we've reached our desired stitch count, and we'll join together. We'll join the sections together. Alright, see you soon. Alright, now then, like I said in the interject, I didn't need to increase by 18 rows. It was only 13, because now when I sit this on the back of me, the shoulders sort of they're not right on my shoulders, sort of hanging off the sides, but it sits just as I want it to sit, you know, which you'll see in the thumbnails, and obviously there'll be pictures on Instagram that you can go and look at. So yes, I only needed to do 13 rows before I got to that stage. So now what I'm going to do is I'm going to join the increased sections to the front of the shoulder section. So we're going to be joining them like this. I'm going to show you how I'm going to do that. So yeah, I mean, it is annoying that I had to interject, but it would have been more annoying if I had to take it apart and start again. So it was easier to just, you know, interject. So what we're going to do now is, starting on the 14th row, we are going to be increasing for this row, but obviously this is where it ends, and we just continue on with the sleeves and the body, and it's at a certain point we're going to be joining the front to the back. However, what we're going to do now is we're going to chain up 1 and start another row. So chain up 1, turn your first double crochet into that first stitch, then 2 double crochets into the next stitch, and we're going to do double crochets up to the increase section. But I'm going to meet you at the, don't do the increase section, because we're going to meet back up at that point and we're going to join. So I'll see you then. Alright, here I am at that increase section, and at this point I've got actually a stitch count. Once I put in the final increase just here for the sleeve, it's going to be a stitch count of 42, which just, it's actually quite wide, but you know, it wraps comfortably. And I don't know, you could probably call it cozy. I think that's what it's going to be. So that's going around my bicep. Stitch count of 42. Now, what we're going to do to join here to here is we're going to yarn over, go into the increase section, yarn over, pull up a loop, yarn over and pull through 2 loops only. Now what you're going to do is you're going to turn, make sure you're pushing the yarn to the side just like that. You're going to turn, you're bringing the other side of the sleeve around like this, and you're going to go into that first stitch right at the beginning there. So that stitch, if you turn it around, you see that's the one that falls down to the side just there. So you can count along if you want, just to make sure you're going into the right one, but it is going to be that one just there. So you're going to put your hook through that stitch, you're going to grab your yarn, you're going to yarn over, pull that loop through that stitch, and then pull it through those remaining 2 stitches of that final double crochet for the sleeve just there. And you've double crocheted the sleeve together like that. So now you're turning to the increase section again. So just turning to the increase section. You're not going to chain 2 because you've finished the increases. So you're just going to put another double crochet for the final increase of the back. into that increase section, just to close it up like that. And now you're going to move on to the stitches of the back. Stitches of the back, and you're just going to continue those to the next increase section. I'm going to meet you at that point, and we're going to do it together. All right, see you soon. All right, here I am at the increase section. So what we're going to do is we're going to put our final increase in for the back just here, so that one stitch. And now again, instead of doing that chain of 2, because we're not going to be increasing again after this, you're just going to put another double crochet into that increase section, so just closing it up like that. And now you're going to move on to the stitches of the sleeve. And I'll meet up with you at the second last one. We'll do the final increase of this sleeve together. And we're going to join this side, this side to here together. So I'll meet you at the second last stitch. Okay, here I am at the second last stitch. So we're going to put our 2 double crochets into that stitch. So 1 and 2. Now we're going to, for the last stitch, yarn over, insert our hook into that last stitch, yarn over, pull up a loop, yarn over, pull through 2, so we're only doing half of the stitch. So now what we're going to do is turning this way, we're going to go back to that increase section that, you know, where we haven't put in another chain of 2. So we're going back to the first stitch of the shoulder just here. And this goes back to where you're going to know where to put that stitch is because we're working in the unbraided side. So the stitch, see there's the stitch that's the first of the, into that chain space, the first of this shoulder. So because we're working into the unbraided side, the corresponding stitch for the body is going to be falling to the top left hand side. So let's get a bit closer. So there's the body of the stitch that we're working with. So it's going to be that stitch just up there, making sure the yarn is pushed to that side. So where are we? There we go. So that one, and that's how you're going to know. Just so you don't have to put in a stitch marker. If you don't have stitch markers, or you can put in your stitch marker, that's fine too. But I just find that's how I know. So there it is, top left, that stitch just there. Then yarn over, pull the loop through that stitch, and then finish up that double crochet. And that's how we're joining that sleeve. So we've joined the increase sections, and now you've got yourself a little sort of bolero type thing, which is quite nice in itself. All right, so now what we're going to do is we're not joining the front to the back at this stage, because if you actually join the bikini cups at this point, they don't sit right and they're not going to look good. What you need to do at this stage is you need to chain up 1. We're still only chaining up 1. And you're going to move to the first stitch along on the back just here. You're going to put in a double crochet. And as I said, we're not increasing anymore. You're just going to put a double crochet into every stitch all the way along till the end of the back. So we're done with the sleeves for the moment. We're not going to continue with those till later. So what we're doing is, at this point, is we're increasing the length of the back just here till it sort of falls to a point, or the length is increased at the back to a point where it meets up with where the bottom of the cup sits when you put it on, when you hold it against your chest. So just sort of beneath bust area, or like beneath the bust line. So sitting just there. So try it on as you go. You'll see what I mean. If you hold your cup up against your chest, you'll be able to see what it means. So where are we? There we go. So where this part sits on your chest, so just beneath the bust line, that's where you're going to be crocheting the length of this too. And that's going to be the point where you join the cups to the back. So I'll do a bit and I'll show you what that looks like. We'll meet back up once I've done that. So when you get to the end of the row just here, you're going to chain up 1, turn the work, and continue to increase the length that way, putting double crochets back in the other direction. I'll meet with you at the end of this row and we'll do it together. but you probably know where to go from there. All right, see you in a moment. All right, here we are on the final stitch of the row, and remembering that rule of putting your stitch into the stitch that falls to the top right of the body of the corresponding stitch. So that one just there for your final increase of the back, and that's our last stitch of the row, just there like that. So now what we're doing is we're chaining up one, and we're turning and just putting double crochets back in the other direction. So beneath that chain of one into that stitch just there, that's going to be your first double crochet. Then moving on to the next one, double crochet. So that's how we're increasing the length. Now, what you need to do is just like the bikini cup where you had to stop one row before the final half round, you're going to stop one row before this final lengthening row, because the final row of the lengthening process just here is going to be where you're joining the bikini cups. So stop just one row short of where it would be sitting just beneath the bust line. So do that, and then we're going to meet back up, and we're going to work on the edging, and then we're going to be working on joining the cups, and you'll be able to see how it's all coming together. I'm actually quite excited because I have had to modify this a fair bit from the original tester. Stitch counts are completely different, but you know, it's fun. It's what we do here. We just like to have fun, you know. Alright, so I'm going to do that. We'll meet back up once we're at that one row short of the lengthening, and we'll go from there. Alright, see you soon. Alright, now that I've increased the length of the back just here to a point where I've estimated that one more row will sit at the level of just beneath the bust line. So it's going to correspond with the level of where the bottom of the cup sits on your chest when you hold it up against yourself. So what we're going to do now is we're going to join the cups to the back. So to do that, what I've done, I've laid, I don't know, how do you say it, laid. I put this down flat so we can have a look. So what you're going to need to do is, because what we're going to do with the back, we're going to chain up one and turn. And we're working into, obviously, the wrong side of the stitch by doing that. But as we work into the wrong side, we're creating a braid on the side that's facing us, obviously. So you go in, you put your double crochet, that stitch creates a braid that faces towards you. So what you're going to need to do is make sure that the cup, or the cups are facing, with the braid facing away from you. So you're working into that, so that when it comes time, all the stitches are facing in the same direction as each other. I'm sure that makes sense. Okay, so what we're going to do, we've chained up one, we've turned on the back, we're going to yarn over, and we're going to start the first part of the first stitch. So you're going to insert your hook, yarn over, pull up a loop, yarn over, pull through 2 loops only. So you're just pulling through those 2 loops. Now you've got 2 loops left on the hook. So pushing the yarn to the back just there. You're going to bring up the first stitch along on the cup just here. So where you tied off, you're going to insert your hook into that stitch, first stitch along. Then you're going to grab the yarn that you're working with, yarn over, pull a loop through that stitch of the cup, and then finish up that double crochet that you started on the back. Pull through those 2 loops. So there you go, you've just double crocheted the front to the back. So that's that side. Now what you're going to do is just put in your double crochets to the end of the row, and on the last stitch we'll meet back up and we'll do it together. We'll join the other side to the other side of the bikini cups. Okay, see you in a moment. Alright, now I've reached the last stitch, so what we're going to do, just like the first stitch, is we're going to yarn over. We're going to go into that last stitch. There's that one right on the end there. Going into that stitch, we're going to yarn over. We're going to pull through a loop, then yarn over, pull through 2 loops only. Grab a bit more yarn, then making sure the yarn is pushed to the back just there. You're going to pick up the last stitch along. So again, now, where are we? Alright, so working into, again, I haven't done a stitch marker, but I can easily find the stitch that we're going to need to be working with because the body of that stitch is right there. So it's going to fall to the top left. We're going to go into that stitch and I'm going to grab the yarn that we're working with, yarn over, pull a loop through that stitch and then pull it through the 2 remaining stitches of that double crochet on the back. If it bothers you, just put a stitch marker into the stitch that you need. So count however many stitches you've got along the front of those cups and just put a stitch marker in so you know where to go. Sometimes I just forget, so that's what's helped me. Anyway, so what we're going to do now is we're going to be putting edging along the sides up to the top of the back here, and at the top of the back between the shoulder and the back we're going to be putting straps that are going to attach to the cups at the front. So to do that, straight from that last double crochet at the end of the row just there, what you're going to do is chain up 1 and you're going to turn to the side just here where you increase the length on the back. So just here, and you're going to be working up along the side just here and then up along the shoulder section, the front of the shoulder section to the top. So we're going to be working single crochets into the row ends, and because they're double crochet row ends, there's going to be 2 stitches per row end. But this chain of 1 that we've just done here is going to act as our first stitch. Hang on, we can probably just tilt the camera back up now. So this chain of 1 is acting as our first stitch. So all we need to do is find the second part of this row end just here. So it's going to be just there. We're going to go into that part of the row end, yarn over, pull up a loop, yarn over, pull through 2, and that's a single crochet. So now moving on to the next row end, so that's this just here, you'll easily be able to find the 2 parts of each row end. So just here you can see there's that first part of the row end just here, it's got kind of a bit dividing each part. You're going to go in, yarn over, pull up a loop, yarn over, single crochet. Now you're going to go into the second part of that row end with another single crochet. So let's move on to the next row end together. So here is the next one, and you're going to go into the first part, single crochet, then into the second part of that row end, single crochet. So you're going to do that till you get to the top. So I'm going to meet you when you get to the top where you start, like there's the chain, foundation chain of the shoulder. I'm going to meet you just up there at that corner. So just continue along, putting 2 single crochets into each row end. So 1, 2, and then moving on to the next row end just there, you've got 1 and 2. So yes, I'll meet you at the top of the first shoulder and we'll go through moving on to the foundation chain together. Alright, see you soon. Just quickly want to show you, just in case you were wondering, so you've gone along on that bit where you increase the length of the back just there. So you're just moving, just in case you get confused, you're just moving straight onto the double crochet row ends of the shoulder. So there's the first row end just there on the shoulder section. So you're going to go into the first part of that just there, single crochet, then into the second part of that row end, single crochet, and you're just moving up like that. So then going into the next row end, without bumping the camera, single crochet, and the second part, single crochet. So I'll see you at that point. Alright, so here I am at the top of the first shoulder section. So I've put 2 single crochets into that last row end just there. So there's my 2 single crochets. Now all I'm going to do is I'm going to turn straight to the top and I'm just going to work single crochets into the other side of that foundation chain. So there's going to be 14 single crochets along here till I get to this increase section. And this is where we're going to meet back up. So we'll do it together. You can pretty easily see where you need to, same with the cups, you know, you can pretty easily see where you need to put your stitch. And so you've got 2 into that second chain along where you did the increase. Then going into the next chain. So that's 1, 2, 3, then that one will be 4. So I'll meet you at this point for whatever stitch count you've got along here for your shoulder. and we'll talk about doing the chain that's going to join to the first cup. All right, see you soon. All right, now here I am at the increase section, and I've done all those 14 single crochets along the top just there and along the top part of that foundation chain of the shoulder. So what we're going to do now, actually I have one more stitch to go into just there. There's that 14th one. So here I am at the increase. So what we're going to do at this point is, now you're going to need to play around with the stitch count of this chain, because you want the cups to sit just right on your chest. If it's a little bit off, it can look kind of funny. So luckily I've played around with this, and so now I won't have to come back and interject again. But for me, this chain is going to be 30. So just like the chain we did along the front here, and as you can see, I've got my cups laid out in front of me. So here we are. We're just going to make a chain that runs from here to here. So now what I'm going to do is, straight from that last single crochet that I did before the increase section just here, hopefully that will focus. Sometimes it just really doesn't like to, does it? No. All right, so straight from there we're going to chain that length. So like I said, for me it's 30. You know, it's not really that big a deal. Just play around with it till you get it right though, because you really, honestly, you really want the cups to sit nicely. All right, so I'm going to chain 30. So 1, 2, 3. All right, and here I am with that chain of 30. So now what I'm going to do, making sure the yarn is pushed to the back just there once again, we're going to pick up the peak of the corresponding cup at the front, and into that chain of 1 space at the peak of the cup, you're going to insert your hook into that chain space of 1. You're going to find your yarn, you're going to yarn over, pull a loop through that increase section at the top of the cup, and then just pull that loop through your final chain, just there like that. So now, straight from there, turning back to the chain, you're going to slip stitch back along that chain, just like you did at the front. Slip stitching, you're going to skip the first chain. Hang on, I'm just going to make sure you can see what I'm doing. There we go. So skipping that first chain from the hook, so skipping that one just there, you're just going to put your next one in. So that's your first slip stitch, is going to be the second one. So 1, and for me this is going to be 30. So whatever you chained is however many you're going to slip stitch into back to the beginning. So that's 1, 2. So I'll meet back up with you. 3 at the beginning. 4, and we'll move on to the next part of the back, and I'm going to meet back up with you for the next chain as well. All right, see you soon. All right, now here I am back at the beginning of that chain. So all you're going to do from here is just move on to the other side of the chain at the back just here. So there'll be 30 for me going along the back. So 1, 2, 3. I'll meet you at the next increase section. All right, here I am at that next increase section. So once again, we're going to chain 30. So 1, 2, 3. And here I am with my chain of 30. Also remember, your chain is going to be different. So just wanted to mention that. So whatever chain length yours is, here we are with that chain length. So now we're pushing our yarn to that side. We're picking up the corresponding cup at the front, and we're inserting our hook into the chain of 1 space at the peak of that cup. Picking up our yarn, yarning over, pull through that loop, pulling through the last loop on your hook, last chain. Then turning back to that chain, you slip stitching back to the beginning. And once again, skipping that first chain from the hook, so that one just there, going into the next one. And for me, that's 30. So it's a little bit tricky to get into, but I'm sure I'll get into it. So yeah, just slip stitching all the way back to the beginning. All right, now here I am with those 30 slip stitches all the way back to the beginning. And once again, we're just moving on to the next chain on the top just here. So into that next chain, the other side. Single crochet, and we're doing, I think it's going to be 14 single crochets along the top just here till I get to the end of the top, and then we'll be moving down the side of the shoulder to the side of that length increase. Just the same as on the other side, but you know, the reverse, the mirror image of that. So I'll meet you at the end of the top just here. Alright, now here I am, and I've put my last stitch in along the top just there. So now all we're doing is turning to the side, and straight from there you're going to, hang on, let's have a look. Yeah, okay, we're just going to go straight from there, and we're not going to put 2 into this row end because we've already got this single crochet at the top just here. So just put 1 into that second part of that row end. Then you're just going to move on to the next row end here. You're going to put 2 single crochets into the 2 parts of the second row end. And as you can see, I'm crocheting that end in as I go along. So now where are we? Moving to the next one along. Which is going to be this one here. So, you know what? I just realized what I was doing. So I'm back at the top again. I just unpicked those few stitches. So because it's the reverse, I was wrong. So there are 2 parts to this row end. It's this just here and this. So that first row end, you're just moving on to, there's the first part, 1, and there's the second part, 2. Sorry about that. And then you're moving on to the 2 parts of the second row end. So there's 1 and 2. There's the third row end, so you've got part number 1 just there, still crocheting in that end as I go along, and then there's the second part, 2. So we're doing that all the way down, like I said, all the way down the side of the shoulder just here, and then all the way down the side of that length increase till you get to the bottom just here. I'm going to meet with you at that point, and we're going to move on to the body. Alright, see you soon. Alright, now I've put in all my edging and put in my straps, so now I'm down the end just here on this length increase part. So now what we're going to do is turn to the bottom, and all I'm going to do straight from that last single crochet I did on the side just there, I'm just going to slip stitch into that original stitch where we put the second half of our double crochet to the front cup just there. So that's what we're doing. Now, what we're going to do at this point is we're going to chain up 2, and we don't need to turn because as you can see, we're working into the unbraided side of the stitch. So that's good. Going around like this has just brought us right to where we need to be, so we don't need to turn. Just work straight into it. So we've chained up 2, and we're going to just be, so we're going to put our first double crochet into this stitch just here. So for me, along the bottom of these cups, there were 37 stitches, so that's going to be 1. Then we've got 2, and I'm just working this loose end in as I go along. So we've got 3. So I've got 37 along the front. I think I had 58 along the back. That was what I ended up increasing to. So I'm going to do 38 along the front, 58 along the back. Okay, yes, so that's given me 95 stitches all the way around. So where are we? I want to make sure I get that loose end. So that's what I've got. I should have 95 stitches all the way around. There we go. But yeah, like I said, always remember that rule of when you're working into the unbraided side, the stitch that corresponds with the stitch that the body of the stitch that you're working with falls to the top left. I know I go on about that. It's just, you know, I find it really helpful. And I just want to give you something that's going to help you as well, if you know what I mean. So there we go. 95 for me all the way around. I'm going to meet you at the end of the round, and we'll close up and we'll start the next round together. And from there, I can just leave you to increase the length. But yes, I'll meet you at the end just here. See you soon. All right, now here I am at the end of this round. So you'll see that your final stitch is going to be hidden by that single crochet row end. So all you need to do is just sort of go into that single crochet row end. So see just here, there's that single crochet that you put into the row end. So you're just going to go around a stitch just there. So sort of the row end of the single crochet, like I said. And you're just going to double crochet into that and that's your final stitch. Now what you do is you slip stitch into the top of that chain 2 at the beginning. So there's that chain of 2, slip stitch into that, close the round. There we go. So that's that first round. Now the preceding rounds are going to be a bit different. So you're going to chain up 2, you're going to turn, and you're not working your first stitch into that stitch right beneath that chain of 2. You're going to go into the next one along. So not that one, but that one just there. So double crochet, because your final stitch right at the end is going to be into the connecting stitch just there beneath the chain of 2. Focus camera, come on. So it's going to be that one just there. If in doubt, just count your stitches to make sure. But that's what you're going to do. And then at the end of every round, you slip stitch into the chain of 2, the top of the chain of 2 from the beginning, close the round, chain up 2, turn. And that's what we're doing. And all you're doing now is increasing the length of the body. So once we've done that and we're happy with what it is, we're going to meet back up and we're going to talk about doing the sleeves. So yes, I look forward to getting that all done. All right, see you soon. All right, now then, let's get working on one of these sleeves. So I've increased the body, I've increased the length a little bit. I think I might need to go and get another skein. Hopefully not. If I don't have to, then this will have taken 6 skeins to make. But I have actually done one of the sleeves and it doesn't seem like there was enough in just one. So depending on how much I've got left after, because I've got 2 more left. Depending on how much I've got left, I might need to go and get another one. So it'll work out to be 6 or 7. I'll let you know anyway, probably at the beginning. So we're going to get working on one of the sleeve, well, this sleeve, the remaining sleeve. So finding where you joined, when you joined the increased sections. So we're going to be working into the non-braided side. So there is a braided side on the outside. On the inside, there's the non-braided side. So we're going to be working into that first stitch just there at the join, before the join. What we're going to do is we're going to find a fresh piece of yarn. We're going to make a slip knot. So making a slip knot, and I like to make it not too long. I'm just going to crochet it in as we go along. So we're going to adjust that to the hook. We're going to pull that through. Now pull tight and pull the scraggledy end or the loose end through, just so that you're crocheting it in on the inside, so it's not sort of sticking out in the front. So all you're going to do is you're going to chain up 2, and your first stitch is going to go in beside that slip knot and that chain of 2. So I'm working with 42 stitches because that's what it ended up being before I joined. So there's 1 double crochet into that first stitch and just moving on to the next one. So I'll be counting 42 around, and I'll meet you at the end of the round. We will do it together, how we're going to proceed to the next round. So I'll see you once we've reached the end of the round. Okay, see you soon. Alright, so here I am putting in my 42nd stitch, so that final stitch of the round. And there we go, that's round 1. So now all we're going to do is slip stitch into the top of that chain of 2 from the beginning. So that's just there, into that stitch at the top of that, slip stitch to close the round. And now all we do is we chain up 2, we turn just like the body. You turn, and your first stitch isn't going into that stitch right beneath that chain of 2, it's into the next one along. So you're going to be doing that because your final stitch will be into that connecting stitch just there at the end. Then you will slip stitch into the top of the chain 2 to close the round, chain up 2, turn the work, and just grow the sleeve, obviously to the length that you need it to be. So that's it. That's all we need to do is, grow the length of the sleeves, grow the length of the body. I actually ended up getting a really lovely red button. So it's kind of, I don't know whether that shows up well, whether you can see that. It's like a lovely sort of mother of pearl red that just looks really good against this. I don't know whether you can see that. Yeah. So I'm hoping to attach this. So this is a very different design. It won't be for everyone. It won't be for everyone, and honestly, it's turned out completely different from the tester. So it fits different, it looks different, everything is different. It's not bad. I don't think it's bad. I actually quite like it. I'm not sure at this stage. Oh, we'll talk about it at the end. Obviously, we're going to go away. We're going to finish up our sweaters, then we're going to come back. We're going to try on our sweaters, and we're going to see how they look. They are going to look good. But yes, definitely the weight of the yarn, the ply, is going to determine how this sits, how this fits, how it sits. So there's that, you know. Anyway, I'm going to stop talking. I won't go on. Let's go away. Let's go away. Let's finish up. Let's meet back up. Let's see how our sweaters look. All right, I'll see you soon for that. Alrighty. So here is the finished top. Yeah. So, you know, I don't hate it, but I also don't love it, and I don't think this is something I would be wearing out in public. I don't know. I mean, you'll see in a moment the tester with the finer yarn sits way better. I do like it, but I don't know. I don't know. Like, I just don't know what else to say. I love the yarn though, so I am going to take it apart and make something else. Possibly not the next tutorial, but the one after that. So anyway, here we have coming up the tester. So as you can see, not even close to finished, and the colors are weird, but I still like it. And it just sits way better. Way better. So I think for this one, it could be something that I revisit at the end of winter, going into spring next year, because I do like this design. I like it a lot. So yeah, I'd love to know what you think. Let me know, you know. I hope you've enjoyed this tutorial. Thank you for watching.